My entitled son demands his inheritance after I'm diagnosed with lung cancer. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. 16 years ago, my son Matthew had a daughter with his now ex-wife Josie. I have always thought of Josie as my own daughter, so when they divorced 7 years ago due to my son's cheating, I was conflicted and disappointed. Josie wasn't particularly close with any of her family, so my husband and I naturally took them in. Josie was an angel. She had insisted that we didn't have to lift a finger more than before we'd taken them in, and though she was hurt, she kept civil around Matthew. My husband and I held a huge hand in raising their daughter Ruth, because Matthew remarried less than a year later, and now has a 4-year-old son after disowning Ruth. 2 years ago, my husband was diagnosed with lung cancer. It was hard on everyone, especially Ruth. They were extremely close. She told him about her girlfriends and boyfriends before anyone else, and has always wanted him to be the one to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. Matt rarely ever visited and didn't answer our calls, often saying that we had other kids so it wasn't like my husband was dying lonely. Last night, Matt stopped by to talk about inheritance. He never mentioned Josie nor Ruth, and hinted that he thought he should get more inheritance than his siblings the entire time. My husband and I shared awkward looks until he decided to cut in. He explained that everyone would get a piece, but he'd focus more on Ruth and Bonnie, one of our other grandkids. Matt got angry and said that Ruth was just a bastard and that his son deserved more than her. My husband got furious after that and left the room saying that he won't include Matthew at all. Matt yelled back and turned to me saying that Ruth wasn't worth it because she'd just grow up to sleep around like her mother. I told him that I'd rather have her mother as my daughter than him as my son, and insisted that he leave. I'm getting phone calls from Matt's wife and family friends, saying that my husband and I overreacted, and he was just angry that we were playing favorites. Am I the jerk? Update. This situation is what my grandchildren have described as messy. There's a lot that happened, so I'll try to sum it up in one explanation. We'd been trying to talk with Matthew for several weeks after what happened, and were only met with silence. He and his wife would refuse us at the door, and he never answered his phone. There was obviously something we didn't know from his side of the story, but we can't make a judgment based on what we could possibly not know. I sat Josie down and asked her if she knew what could possibly be happening. She never talked much about her and Matt's marriage, and we never pried. Josie broke down and told us that their marriage wasn't great from the beginning, and that Matt cheating wasn't something new, and them moving here was because he told her he would stop once he was closer to his family. She said she never told us because she was embarrassed, and she didn't want to turn us against our son. A few days ago, Matthew came by our house well after midnight while drunk. He insisted on talking, so I brought him to the basement patio. He told me that he thought Josie was cheating on him from the beginning, but had no proof nor any reason to think it. He just couldn't think that such a pretty ex-party girl would stay faithful. Josie getting pregnant wasn't off track for their bedroom life, but he just couldn't believe it. There wasn't much sense to his words, but he did say,
"She's so pretty and I love her so much, why would she stay faithful?"
He started having affairs after Ruth was born, and Josie knew. She stayed because she didn't want Ruth to have a dysfunctional family. Eventually, he started repeating that he screwed up and being a crappy father is the only thing he's good at, and that he can't disappoint anyone if there's nothing to look forward to with him. He said,
"I'm a jerk, and that's it. No changing it. I'm only good for being the villain,"
and called his wife for a ride home. He's gone back to ignoring us, and I'm not sure what to do. His wife Ellie has told us that she's tried, and it's not a fight we're gonna win. In an even longer short story, Ruth is 100% Matt's daughter, and it looks like we're gonna have to raise our grandson too. I hope everyone has gotten their fill of drama today. This guy really sounds like a piece of work. It sounds like he may have some issues of his own, whether that be self-esteem or confidence or whatever it may be. But these actions are having an incredible impact on his family, from his ex-wife and ex-child to his parents to his new relationship. This guy needs to get it together. He's ruining the lives of everyone he cares about. That's assuming that he has some good left in him. With the way he wrote off his daughter and how he's only coming around his parents' house looking for money seemingly, the argument would probably sway that he's just a jerk. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below. And don't forget to subscribe. Lesson learned. I'm never bringing my Switch to work again. So this happened to me today. I work in fast food to give you a clearer picture. I went on my break and was playing Pokemon Shield. So I'm playing my game when I see a young boy, about 7 years old, watching me. I look up and see his mother watching us. She nods, so I assume she's giving me permission to talk to him. I asked if he's played before and he says no, so I let him play. I tell him I started playing when I was his age, and give him pointers when he asks. So the alarm on my phone goes off for the end of my break and I ask for it back, which he does and thanks me for letting him play. I'm walking towards the staff room when I hear the call of a wild Karen behind me. Ahem. I look back and see the boy's mother behind me. Yes, can I help you? Yes, you can let my son play your game. You're going to be working anyway, so he can play it until we leave. We're paying customers after all. Sorry, miss, but this is my property, so I'm putting it in my bag now. No, give my son your game. Mom, stop it. I don't want her game, it's hers. She had raised her voice now, so my manager had come over, and because I was late coming off my break as well.
Is there a problem here?
Yes, she won't give my son her game to play with. She's gonna be working now, so she should let him keep playing until we're done. She has this smug look on her face, like she thinks her logic is sound and my manager is just gonna agree with her.
Ma'am, that's her property, and if she says no, then that's her right.
But I'm a paying customer. My son should be able to play.
Ma'am, if she said no, then that's the end of it. Now, you can either sit down and finish your food or you can leave.
Karen stomped off to her table and grabbed her things, before storming out with her son following behind her. I feel really bad for him, because he was really sweet as well. My manager asked if I needed 5 minutes, but I told him I was fine, put my Switch in my bag, and went back to work. See, that's what you get for being nice to random kids. The parents always gotta be the ones to ruin it. This is our poster's original property. They're under no obligation to allow you to use it, period. They were nice enough to let your kid mess around and have fun with it while they were on their break. But that's the extent of it. Just thank the person for being nice to your kid and letting them have a good experience and move on with your day. Why do you gotta be a jerk about it? My company told me to stop expensing the plastic bags I use when I do shopping for the office, so I stopped doing anything extra. I used to work for a small company, and due to the bus times, I'd arrive at work 45 minutes early every day. I was nearly always first in, so would be the one opening up the office and getting things set up. For context, my boss was pretty tight, so this would even include switching on the fridge after a weekend. One of the tasks I took upon myself was to buy milk for the office. In my 45 minutes unpaid time, the shop was about a 20-minute round trip, and I always got enough to last the week. In the UK, we pay for plastic bags, so I always tried to have a couple spare in my work bag. However, sometimes I just forgot, so would buy one from the shop. While I was allowed to expense the milk, sometimes I would forget or lose the receipt, so then the company would be getting free milk. One day, I submitted my expense claim and left the receipt on the finance manager's, i.e. the boss's wife's, desk, and went for a meeting. Usually when this happens, I would come back to a couple of bucks to cover the milk. This time, however, I came back to the money and a note asking me if I could stop expensing the company for 5 pence plastic bags, as it's inefficient and a waste of company resource. So I did. In the 12 months I continued to work for them, I never bought milk again for the office, and stopped doing any chores in the opening up of the office, other than switch off the security alarms. I'd instead use that 45 minutes to eat breakfast or even just sleep. For the sake of 5 pence every couple of weeks, the company lost someone doing office chores for free, started paying for all their milk, plus had the inconvenience of running out of milk during the day with someone having to use work, i.e. paid time, to buy more, which was even more awkward when we had clients in. This is being really petty. Unfortunately, at companies, they literally count every cent and try and save everywhere they can. In this case, though, I don't think they were looking at the big picture. Clearly, you were making an effort to at least bring the bags on your own, considering they weren't charged for this every single time. It was just once in a while when you would forget. With that in mind, I really don't think it's a big deal. The amount of money you're talking about is so small in the grand scheme of things. This is literally nothing more than a power move and someone trying to express control. It's really kinda sad. Entitled dad doesn't want me interrupting his conversation at the restaurant and tells me to just bring his kid whatever he wants. He's not happy when he gets the bill. I worked at a country club, being paid almost nothing by the hour but having 10% of the client's bill given to me, unless they said they weren't paying it. So despite the absurd workload, I took it. Let me say that these people were loaded. Some of the wealthiest folk in the city, spending almost all day eating and drinking while their children would run around or play in the pools. Despite the money, the majority were nice, really respectful folk, especially the older ones. One fateful sunny Saturday, this man comes in with his family. Let's call him Joe. Joe sits down in the same table as a lot of my regular Saturday clients were. A group of older gentlemen who ordered beer after beer, and lots of special orders from the kitchen. "G'day, sir. Can I take your order?"
Sure, bring me a Brand X beer and some ice cream for the kid.
Joe's kid was a young boy around 9 called Billy, who I had seen around the club but never talked to. Joe's wife was Carmen, who just nodded to the husband's request and off I went. Over the course of the next hour or so, every time Billy saw me near him, he would just ask me for another ice cream or soda, etc. Due to the club's rules, I had to go directly to Joe and ask him to authorize the boy's request. I was only doing my job, and everyone at the table knew that, using my arrival as an excuse to order more drinks. Joe, however, was getting pretty angry, and around the 8th time I arrived to talk, he grabbed me by the arm.
I'm trying to have a conversation here. What's the deal now? He's just doing his job, Joe. Leave the kid alone.
Your son wants…
Listen, just give him whatever he asks you to get, okay? Just don't bother me again.
I look around the take, fuming as Joe let go of me, and see the old man wink at me. Cue the malicious compliance. For the rest of the day, whenever the boy asked for anything, I would just give it to him and charge Joe's account. It didn't take too long for Billy to realize I wasn't going to his dad, and his requests began to escalate. What started as a simple ice cream was now being portions and more portions of loaded fries, sodas, and probably more sugar than any kid should eat. It was already night when Carmen came to me, asking to close their bill. It was monstrous. Joe tried to argue with me and request for the manager, but the rest of the table reminded him of his demand to me. He was forced by the manager to pay, since there were multiple witnesses to his orders, and Carmen made him upgrade my share to 15% of their bill as an apology. Needless to say, he never treated me rudely again, and the old guys never let him forget that story. I don't know what to tell you, folks. Not a whole lot to add to this one. The guy got what was coming to him almost immediately, and he literally asked for it along the way, with multiple witnesses at the table. I understand being kind of upset when you get slapped with that bill, but you brought this on yourself. Thankfully, Dad seemed to pick up on this pretty quickly and never made this mistake again. Not to mention, it sounds like our original poster walked away with a pretty nice tip from this bill, so they're probably not complaining that much to begin with. My daughter refuses to save a seat at her wedding for her sister, so I told her to get over herself. I was blessed with 3 beautiful children, and unfortunately, my eldest, Brooke, passed away when she was 5 years old. It rocked my world, and I know I haven't been the same since. I went through therapy and still attend to this day, but a part of me died too. I'll never let my daughter be forgotten. I bring pictures of her to events such as holiday celebrations and birthdays. I talk about her all the time. Every year on my living children's birthdays, I think of her and how her once younger siblings are now older than her. My daughter Marnie is getting married next month. I asked her if she was having a memorial table, and she said no. I asked her about creating a seat for her sister who passed, as she should be a part of the day. Marnie told me no. For once, she wants a day to be about her. She says she couldn't have one event that wasn't about Brooke. Even her graduation, I had put a picture of her on the seat. She said I needed to stop making my grief front stage. I told her she was being incredibly selfish, and until she goes through a loss like this, she'll never understand. Marnie asked me if her kids would have to live under the shadow of Brooke too. I told her she should be ashamed and to get over herself. My son says I'm being terrible and need to reevaluate my life. Am I the jerk? Yikes, this is a really tough one. I'd like to start off by saying that I'm really sorry that that's something that you had to go through. It's not something that any parent should have to live with. I can't imagine the pain it's caused, and I understand how it would still have an impact on you today. With that being said, you're giving it more power than you'd need to. You're the one carrying this through your life and constantly reopening your wound. No one's saying you need to forget her or let this all go and forget it ever happened. What they want is for you to move on and be happy and enjoy the other aspects of your life without constantly having that shadow hanging over you. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but your family's right. This is something that you really need to work on. Apparently you have been, but you have to realize that your vision on this subject is incredibly skewed and biased, for lack of a better word. That hurt and pain that you felt is affecting the way you feel. You've made your living children feel like they don't matter. Unfortunately, you are the jerk. I can't imagine your loss, but you've hurt your 2 living children by never allowing them to move on. And in your fear of having your daughter forgotten, you've ensured that they resent her memory. My entitled mother stole my car to repay herself for all the expenses of raising me. Almost exactly a year ago, my mom kicked me out of the house. Yes, during COVID. I came home and the locks were changed. I was 18, and the last month my dad paid child support had just passed. I had no warning. I still had my car, so I drove it to a friend's house whose parents agreed to help me out temporarily. My mom and my aunt followed me, and when I got out, my mom used the spare key, got in, and drove it away. The car was under her name because I bought it when I was 17. I was paying for it, and I only had one payment left. She was going to transfer it over to me when I finished with the last payment. I know a lot of you are going to start jumping with suggestions, but I talked to the police at the time, and there really wasn't anything I could do. A few days later, she drops off a check for the amount of the car, or rather, what I'm owed. It was $1,800 for a car worth $25 grand. On the side of the check, she showed her work subtracting out the gas, groceries, and heat that I owed her. I'm sure I have lots more stories, but as far as entitlement goes, she's on that crazy train. I'm doing fine now, by the way. I'm going to nursing school. To be more clear, I did not have a $25K loan. I'd been saving for a long while, and with some help from my grandfather, I only had $5,000 left after the down payment. It wasn't through a bank. My mom covered the rest, and I was paying her back as fast as I could. My grandfather has since passed away, and I miss him dearly. My dad helped me out a bit in the beginning, but he's not someone I can rely on. He has straight up told me that he doesn't care, and doesn't want me to come crying to him for money. His philosophy is that paying child support fulfilled his parental duties. While I love all the comments of support, I don't have the time, energy, or money to sue my mom. I'd rather just forget she exists as soon as possible. Also, I'm working 14-hour days with school and work, so I'm always exhausted. Unfortunately, I think our original poster has the right attitude about this. The mom screwed them over, and you know what? Sometimes it's not worth it. It's pretty clear what kind of mother we're talking about here to just kick their kid out immediately after their 18th birthday because dad's not going to be paying child support anymore. Clearly, they don't have the child's best interests at heart. Especially in today's world and economy, you're not necessarily ready to go out there on your own at the age of 18. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. But a parent's job is to support their kid. There's no age at which that stops applying. As far as I can tell, our original poster's just better off. And they seem to have their own thing going now, without having to worry about living with mom, which I'm sure was just miserable. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.